Good evening and welcome to the first time ever Homebuyer Education Series brought to you by the Schuylkill Valley Chapter of Credit Unions. I'm Trish Shermot. I represent CTCE, one of 14 credit unions within the Schuylkill Valley Chapter, and we're here to present the first of 6 in a series of home buying education workshops for consumers through BCTV. With me tonight, I have 2 local credit union experts. They're going to take their time and introduce themselves, and then we'll get the program started. Bob?
Thanks, Trish. Hi, everyone. My name is Bob Zwolinski. I'm the financial education coach at Sun Federal Credit Union, which is located in nearby West Lawn. I started my mortgage career in 1987, and during the past 25 plus years, I've been working with people, helping them through their purchases and refinances on mortgage. During my career, I've had the opportunity to work in affordable housing, where I worked with a lot of different institutions, nonprofit groups, government agencies, creating home buying opportunities for people of low and moderate income. I also added to that experience of working with a nationwide home builder, working on homes that are recently built and homes that won't be built for about a year or so, and protecting them from interest rate rises. So I'd like to thank everybody at home for joining us. I hope you stay with us through this series, and I'd like to thank the Schuylkill Valley Credit Union chapter for inviting me and being part of this panel.
Linda?
Good evening. My name is Linda Kleinsmith, and I'm with CTCE Federal Credit Union here in Reading. And I've been in the lending and compliance industry for over 20 years. I have helped many members clean up their credit and help them through the home buying process. So I'm here to help you answer any of your questions and help you through the home buying process as well. Thank you.
Terrific. Bob, Linda, thanks so much. Let's get started. We're using some materials from Credit Union National Association, and the seminar objectives tonight, we're going to look at dispelling some of the myths around the home buying process through this whole education series. There are a lot of benefits and responsibilities to be a homeowner. We want to look at how to determine your buying power, how to get you the best interest rate, and how to establish some good credit. You know, the better your credit is, the lower that you're going to pay on the interest for that mortgage product. And we're going to give you some tips on how to do that. The other thing that we want to look at tonight is how to look for a predatory lender. You know, those lenders are out there and charging usurious rates, and we want you to steer clear of those lenders. Another big factor that we want to look into this seminar is the credit report. Your credit score. It's your grade, really, of you as a consumer, and it lets lenders know how risky you are. And we want to give you all the tools to help build your credit score in a less risky manner. Another objective is to take control of your debt. We all certainly can't pay off all of our debts and be able to apply for a mortgage. However, we want to look at how do we responsibly manage that debt to our benefit? And do we have the 4 C's in place that will help us get the best loan possible? We're also going to look at some common misconceptions about the mortgage process. Many times, you don't have to have that 20% down. However, if you do, you will be able to avoid private mortgage insurance. And Bob, our expert, is going to talk lots about those programs later on. The other misconception is that you have to pay off all your debts. And as I've said before, we all can't have that luxury. However, we want to look at how we can rein those in to help our credit process. Is the first-time homebuyer loan always the best? It might not be. Depending upon how long you plan on being in that residence, there may be another program out there that is more suitable for your needs. The lowest interest rate might not always be the best. Again, each individual consumer is different, and we invite you to go back to your credit union, go back to the lenders in the credit union, and they'll help you decide which product is right for you. Another misconception is that non-U.S. citizens can't buy a house. Well, I'm here to tell you that based on the information I have, if you have a Social Security number and you're a legal resident of the United States, you can buy a home. Another thing is that frequent job changes, they may affect the home buying process. One of the things that lenders look for is consistency in income. Do you have an income stream coming in all the time? And those are the things that are more important than frequent job changes. It's really, do you have a job and some income? Another big one in the process of looking, do you want to buy a home, is should I rent, buy or rent? It's a really big question, and everybody needs to ask themselves that. You know, if you're worried about your job or you're worried about the industry that you're in and you want to see if things are going to settle down a little bit, then maybe renting is the column that you want to check that is in the best interest for you. If, you know, you're not familiar with the neighborhood that you want to live in and you want to, you know, just live there maybe for a year, then perhaps you should rent to see if that neighborhood is right for you. Another big question that you want to ask yourself is, do you have the extra money for the home expenses? You know, owning a home involves much more than just paying the mortgage payment. If the hot water heater goes, are you able to repair that? Do you have the money set aside for that? And also the spare time. Can you mow the lawn, clean the gutters? If those kind of things are exciting to you, then yes, you want to be a homeowner. If those kind of things don't interest you, then perhaps renting is the place you want to be. The other thing that you want to look at are the tax breaks. Now, I am not a tax advisor, but I'm here to tell you that mortgage interest can be deducted from your taxes. We do encourage you to go back to your lender, go back to the credit union, and ask where you can get more information on that. Benefits of home ownership. Another thing that we want to look at is equity. What is equity? Well, equity is when the amount of a home you actually own. So let's say that we buy a home for $100,000 and we have a mortgage for $80,000. We own $20,000 worth of that home. That's equity in the home. As we pay down that $80,000 mortgage, the equity in the home increases and gives us more buying power. And that's some of the greatest benefits of home ownership. Traditionally, your mortgage expense is the same over the life of that mortgage. So it's pretty stable. You pretty much make the same payment, and it does have some tax advantages to it. Again, when you buy a home, it's much easier to personalize that living space. If you want to paint the walls, add a porch, add a window, add a counter, you can do that in your own home. When you rent a home, it's really hard to do that because you have to go through the landlord for everything. So once you buy a home, you become part of a community and you can do many more things with your own home. On this last slide, before I turn it over to Bob, we're going to look at the responsibilities of home ownership. Again, there's that mortgage payment. Every month, that mortgage payment must be made. There's also the maintenance and the upkeep, the lawn mowing, the cutting of the grass, repairing the roof, all those things have to happen. And also, we have appliances that need to be fixed. You know, it's when the dishwasher breaks or the refrigerator, it's you as the homeowner that has to replace those. And don't forget about the utilities. The utility bills will be in your name as a homeowner, and they must be paid. Those are important things when it comes to looking at the category of home ownership if those things interest you. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Bob, and he's going to review some of the buying powers of the home buying process.
Great, thank you.
Bob?
All right, let's look at determine your buying power. Obviously, the more of a down payment you can put down, the lower the payments will be. So, you can go ahead and put down more of a down payment. That also may allow you to qualify for more of a mortgage. And it's just simply ask your loan officer if that may apply. Higher down payments might be a little bit more flexible. How about analyzing your expenses? Look at what type of expenses that you have now. Is there something that you can pay down? For every dollar that you're able to pay down, you potentially can pick up that dollar in buying mortgage amount. Again, increasing that amount of mortgage that you can go ahead and afford. One of the things I can't stress enough is that for people to get pre-qualified or pre-approved for a loan, go through the most difficult portion right now before you go out looking for a home and get yourself completely approved for the loan. This way, when you're out shopping for a home, make it a fun experience, something that you really enjoy, because not only will you find a home that you can go ahead and afford, but you'll be able to provide the seller the confidence that you're able to buy it. And ask about guidelines. There are many different types of programs. Some may have advantages that fit your unique needs and desires on a mortgage. So let's take a look at the next slide. Now, how much can you afford? Let's look at this way, two ways. There's going to be how much you can afford on paper. Now, if you look at that and you say, well, that equals X amount of dollars, but you're not comfortable with that, and you may be comfortable with a little bit less, then stay with a little bit less. There's nothing wrong with staying with the payment you're most comfortable with. Buying a home is going to have some other added expenses, or you might want to splurge on some furnishings, etc., and you may need that money. So keep yourself comfortable. But most mortgage payments are going to be about a third of your monthly gross income. Now, what is going to make up your monthly payment? It's going to be what we call the PITI payment, or P-I-T-I. So the P-I is the principal and interest, the actual loan that you're borrowing the money from. That'll pay back the loan. The T represents taxes. So each property is going to have local, county, state taxes that are due on it, as well as maybe school taxes. So you just take the annual amount, divide it by 12, and you've got the monthly cost. Now the I is for insurances. Generally, that's going to include your homeowner's insurance, but it also can include that PMI, or private mortgage insurance. So if you're not able to, or you choose not to put down 20% and put a little bit less, that mortgage insurance is going to apply. So that total payment, that PITI, will represent what you need to go ahead and send in your lender monthly. Now, what about the debt-to-income ratio? What does that mean? Well, you may have some other debts. What if you have an auto payment, or like many people, we have student loans? Well, if you add them along with your proposed payment, that should be about 38% of your gross monthly income. Now keep in mind, are we flexible on that? Certainly. We can go up to about 43. But most importantly, be comfortable with your payments, know what you're going ahead and you can afford. Now how about some upfront costs that you're going to have? Now, down payment, for instance. Your down payment is going to be, part of it will be required when you sign your contract. You'll have a good faith down payment. It'll represent a small amount of what the total may want to go ahead and put down. So that's going to be an upfront cost. How much are you going to put down? The rest will be the mortgage amount. Closing costs. We'll actually touch upon this in another slide, so I'll get a little bit more detail. Now, if you haven't thought about it, if you're living someplace else and you've got to move, well, if you don't have a lot of friends, you're going to be moving that either by yourself or you're going to be hiring somebody. So think of those movers fees. There's nothing wrong with going ahead, making some phone calls, getting an idea, get an estimate. What's it going to cost to move all my stuff into this new home? Utility hookup charges. Now, your home's going to need some sort of utilities, whether it be water, gas, electric. Give a call to the utilities. Find out what's the procedure. You wouldn't want to move into a home and not have the utilities ready for you. And you can also ask at that time, are there any type of, hookup charges? Do I have to come with any down payment? So that'll be an additional cost if you do have those. Okay. Now, prepayment of taxes and interest and insurance. Those are some things that are called, prepaids. Again, they're going to come at closing, so I'll cover that in the slide coming down the road here. Now, down payment, where's that money coming from? Most of it's going to come from your account, either your checking, your shared draft account. It's going to represent the cash that you have available. Now, most of that may be in savings. You may have certificates you can use. Now, can you use gifts? Most programs certainly can. Gifts are allowable. I just add a little bit of caution that before you get the gift from your family member, talk to your credit union loan officer. They'll guide you with the proper way of documenting that gift so it won't be an issue down the road. Now, sale of assets, it's something you can do, and maybe, Linda, I don't know if you have any experience, something you can lend here on some sale of assets?
Actually, Bob, I have. I ran across a few members who had to sell some of their assets, whether it be cars, jewelry, equipment that they had, to either put towards the down payment of their home or to actually pay down some debt. So yes, the sale of assets do come in handy.
Yeah. So they are allowable. You can do it. Again, talk to your credit union loan officer on how to document that sale of assets. It's real important that they track the money. It's an important portion of that loan approval process. Now, we also have retirement accounts down. And we have caution there as well, because retirement is just for that. Retirement is allowable, certainly is. But it's something you should really consider before tapping into a retirement account. Closing costs. Okay, so now we've got time of closing. What can you expect? Now we give a range 2 to 7%. I tell you my experience, you're better off looking at the larger number. If you're prepared for that amount and it's less, you're very happy. But if it's more, you're going to be scrambling, trying to find out where you're going to come up with that money. And it's a fun time. Keep it that way. Be prepared. Now, points, loan origination fees. Now, points are generally prepaid interest. If you can get loans that don't have any points, but let's say you want to get maybe a little bit lower of an interest rate, although in this rate environment, rates are already quite low. It's a good time to take advantage of them, but you could pay points. Now, points are prepaid interest. It'll actually lower the amount of interest rate on that loan. And it generally equals out to about 1.25% in rate. Now, loan origination fee, it's a cost that the lender will go ahead and charge for doing various things. You may also have an application fee. You know, there's appraisals to be done, credit reports to be gathered. How about some other things you need at closing? Well, taxes. You're going to start an account called an escrow account. So they're going to go ahead and start to save now for when those taxes are due. So they're going to create an escrow account for taxes. They can range anywhere from 2 to 5 months. Title, your title company will be involved. They'll be doing some searches. There'll be some recording of all your documents. So those are other fees that you have to keep in mind. Now, one thing that's really nice is that you will go ahead and get a good faith estimate. What's nice about the good faith estimate, it will clearly outline all your costs. Now, it is an estimate, so keep in mind it will be close. The good thing is, should you change programs or should rates change anywhere significantly, new rules have been in place that will make them redisclose those fees. So no surprises. So if you get that mail, open it up. It might be your new good faith estimate. How about shoring up your spending? It's real easy. Get a little pen and paper, start tracking where you're spending money. You might be able to identify some of those spending leaks, areas in which you're spending money, you didn't know it, and maybe that'll turn into a nice savings. Now that you're looking to buy a home, you might be well motivated to do so. Put together a spending plan, where your money's going. Set parameters and limitations. This way you're on track to getting that down payment and closing cost. And make savings a budget category. Paying yourself first is a great rule, and it's a good way to start saving up some money. And you can also establish an emergency savings account. Buying a home or just life in general, things happen, you're going to need money. You'd be very happy you started that emergency fund. And control debt. If you're buying something, a good rule is no new debt.
Thanks, Bob. Well, before we talk about our next session, I have a host of questions here that I'm hoping I can pose to our two experts this evening. Linda, can I ask you a question? Can I get a signature loan for part of my down payment for a mortgage?
Thanks, Trish. Most of the time you cannot get a signature loan to use towards the down payment of a home. There are some credit unions that would be willing to give you a secured loan in order to use as a down payment for a home.
Okay. Bob, your experience with signature loans, do you see them much?
Well, most guidelines really prohibit additional building or borrowing, I should say, on the home. And as Linda has indicated, you can go ahead and borrow against something secured. And that includes, again, your retirement accounts, but we're not really looking to do that.
Okay, terrific. How about this? Is there a minimum amount for a mortgage, Linda?
Traditionally, there is not a minimum amount. Usually what happens is if it's a low mortgage amount, I would say anything under $50,000, you might be better off going with a product from one of your local credit unions versus a full-blown mortgage. And the reason for that is there are settlement costs involved. And usually for smaller mortgage amounts, it's not worth to pay the higher settlement costs. So I would recommend going to a loan officer or one of your local credit unions and speaking to one of the loan officers to find out maybe if there is a product that would be more suitable for your financial needs.
Terrific. Thanks, Linda. Bob, on the converse side of that, what about a maximum? Are there different programs? Tell us about that.
There are. I mean, generally we talk about, the mortgage, there are conforming limits, and there are also jumbo loans. So in each one, we'll put you into a different category of guidelines, et cetera. But you will find a distinction between the two. And, of course, the rates can change on the larger loans.
Wow, so much. I bet your credit union professional is the one to go to answer all those questions, correct?
It's a good person to see. Get all the answers up front.
I have another question. We talked a little bit about credit scores. Linda, do you know what my credit score should be before applying for a mortgage?
Yes, generally it should be 660 or above. If it is under 660, I would recommend going to one of your loan officers at one of your local credit unions and figuring out a way to increase your credit score. So there are options out there and people to see to help you to bring your credit score up to an acceptable level to get a mortgage.
Terrific. Well, Bob, this one's for you. Let's see. Do I want to find a home first or a mortgage first? What do you recommend?
Well, that's a good question, and a lot of people get excited to go out and look at a home. But again, we talked about it earlier. Buying a home is the fun time. It's a time filled with a lot of excitement. A lot of people like it. Keep it that way. It's best to go ahead, get pre-approved for a mortgage, and then go look for a home, so that if you do find something, if you fall in love with it, you can afford it.
Terrific. Okay. Linda, I pay everything cash and I have no receipts for any payments and I want to go get a mortgage. How do you recommend I proceed?
Well, like I said earlier, if you go visit one of your financial specialists at one of your local credit unions, they can help you build and establish credit. So that way that can happen for you.
Okay. And if I don't have any credit, should I apply?
Sure, you can apply if you don't have credit. There are ways that they can track on if you paid your rent on time, if you paid your utility bills on time. But I always recommend establishing credit.
Okay. So many things to go through this process, so many things. So I hope within these next sessions that we provide enough answers for all of our members and consumers out there in Berks County. I do have a couple other questions here on my list. Let's see. Any recommendations based on your lending experience that you find consumers should consider before buying a home? What's the number one thing? We talked a lot about credit scores. Is there anything else out there from, do I need to be a mechanic to own a home or, be good with tools? Bob, what do you think?
That's a good question. When you become a home buyer, a homeowner, you become Mr. and Mrs. Fix-It. It's a good idea because a home, it needs maintenance. You got to constantly stay on top of it. Mm-hmm. It's an expense that you've got to plan on, you've got to budget for. So, when you talked earlier about should I buy or should I rent, that's certainly a consideration to really think about. But if you're up for the challenge, I think the reward outweighs, all that work. It's a labor of love at times.
It definitely is. Being a homeowner is a labor of love and many times an unexpected nightmare or a money pit or many other things that we've heard it being called. but I know it's very rewarding. I know also renting is really rewarding, and I know a lot of consumers, it's a great alternative for them, especially if they're trying to build their credit. I know Linda's worked with a lot of consumers who are renting, trying to build their credit in hopes of saving for a mortgage. So some of those topics and more as we work our way through this seminar series will be addressed. We will start in February. We're going to look more at credit and how to repair credit. And I know both Linda and Bob have worked with lots of their consumers to try to do that, and steps to go about it. And there's a lot of tools out there that people can use to help build their credit. So we hope that you will join us February 13th, 2013 at 7 p.m. as we look and explore further into the home buying process. At this time, I'm going to close, and I want to thank the Schuylkill Valley chapter of credit unions, and I'll have Bob and Linda close as well, and thank all of our home viewers for tuning in. Bob, you want to say goodnight to our folks in Berks County, and Linda?
I do. Say good night, and thank you for joining us.
Yes. Good night. Thank you.